In a shocking development that's got everyone talking, a federal judge has slammed the brakes on the Trump administration's efforts to axe jobs for thousands of federal employees right in the middle of a government shutdown. But is this a heroic stand for workers' rights, or just another twist in the ongoing political tug-of-war? Stick around, because this story dives deep into the legal battles, budget battles, and the human impact behind the headlines. Picture this. Just days after the administration started rolling out pink slips to around 4,000 federal workers, a U.S. district judge named Susan Illston stepped in with a temporary halt. She approved an urgent request from two major unions, the American Federation of Government Employees and the AFL-CIO, to stop the layoffs across more than 30 federal agencies. For those just tuning in, a government shutdown occurs when Congress can't agree on funding bills, forcing non-essential government operations to grind to a halt and leaving many workers twiddling their thumbs without pay. It's like hitting the pause button on the entire federal machine. And in this case, it's been dragging on for 3 weeks. But here's where it gets controversial. Judge Illston ruled that the administration was exploiting this funding gap to push through what she saw as an unlawful downsizing of the federal workforce. She pointed to public remarks from President Donald Trump and White House Budget Chief Russell Vought that hinted at clear partisan motives. For instance, Trump reportedly suggested the cuts would zero in on Democrat agencies, sparking debates about whether these layoffs were about efficiency or playing politics. Imagine if a boss fired employees not because the company was struggling, but because they supported a rival political party. That's the kind of red flag this raises, and it could make you wonder if budget decisions are ever truly neutral. A lawyer from the U.S. Justice Department argued during the hearing that the unions should first take their grievances to a federal labor board before escalating to court. Meanwhile, the Trump administration has signaled they'll fight back with an appeal against this restraining order. And this is the part most people miss. Even as the legal drama unfolds, the layoffs were already in motion. Major departments like Treasury and Health and Human Services, HHS, had begun notifying employees, with Homeland Security targeting workers at its Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. Ironic, given how essential those roles are for national safety. Digging into the numbers reveals a staggering scope. An Office of Management and Budget filing showed that over a quarter of the planned cuts were slated for the Treasury Department, where about 1,446 workers received notices. HHS was gearing up to notify between 1,100 and 1,200 employees, though the department later clarified they were only aiming for roughly half that figure. Other agencies weren't spared either. The Department of Education and Department of Housing and Urban Development each planned to let go of at least 400 workers, while departments like Commerce, Energy, and Homeland Security faced reductions ranging from 1,076 to 315 employees apiece. Vought didn't mince words on a podcast called The Charlie Kirk Show, aired just before the ruling, calling the initial 4,000 firings just a snapshot, and predicting the total cuts could soar well beyond 10,000. He emphasized the need to stay on offense for American taxpayers and citizens, framing the move as a bold step to trim fat and save money. But critics argue it could disrupt vital services, from processing benefits to safeguarding infrastructure. The unions, beefing up their lawsuit, contended that these layoffs weren't a core function that could justify action during a funding blackout. They highlighted that most federal workers were already furloughed. That's a fancy term for being sent home without pay. So mass firings felt like overkill. It's a fair point to ponder. If the government is already on ice, why add job losses to the mix? This could leave families scraping by, potentially slowing economic recovery or even endangering public health if key roles in areas like healthcare or security are gutted. Zooming out, this episode is unfolding against the backdrop of a protracted shutdown. The US Senate has repeatedly failed to pass a resolution to get things back on. As this saga continues, it begs some big questions. Are these layoffs a necessary pruning of an overgrown bureaucracy, or a cynical ploy to weaken political opponents? Should judges have the power to intervene in such executive decisions, or does that overstep into policymaking? And in a polarized nation, how do we balance fiscal responsibility with protecting the livelihoods of hard-working public servants? We'd love to hear your take. Do you side with the unions, the administration, or somewhere in between? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's keep the conversation going.